LiberalViewer presents.
So in my video last month about Fox News promoting Bush tax cuts for the rich, I pointed out George W. Bush's tax cuts have had an enormous impact on America's debt, measured in the trillions of dollars, yet because Republicans wrote the law for those tax cuts so they would expire at the end of this year during what turns out to be tough economic times, President Obama has argued for letting just the Bush tax cuts for the rich expire, keeping the lower tax rates for everyone else, as he explained at a press conference last week like this.
97% of Americans make less than $250,000 a year, $250,000 a year or less. And I'm saying we can give those families 97% permanent tax relief. And by the way, for those who make more than $250,000, they'd still get tax relief on the first $250,000. They just wouldn't get it for income above that. Now, that seems like a common sense thing to do. And what I've got is the Republicans holding middle-class tax relief hostage because they're insisting we've got to give tax relief to millionaires and billionaires to the tune of about $100,000 per millionaire, which would cost, over the course of 10 years, $700 billion. And that economists say is probably the worst way to stimulate the economy.
No, everything President Obama said there is accurate, but because Obama makes so much sense arguing to let Bush tax cuts for the rich expire while making tax cuts permanent for the other 97% of Americans, the advocates for the rich over at Fox News had to go into overdrive with the spin, both before and after President Obama's press conference, beginning with one of the main architects of George W. Bush's disastrous policies, Karl Rove, on a supposedly straight news program just before President Obama's press conference saying this.
Look, President Obama wants to make this about whether or not the tax cuts for the top two brackets should be continued or whether taxes should go up. And what happens is about nearly 6 out of 10 people in those top brackets are really small businesses reporting on the individual tax bracket rate.
Now, Karl Rove's claim there that nearly 6 out of 10 of the people in the top two tax brackets are really small businesses is the kind of outrageous spin Karl Rove has made famous, because to get that kind of number, you have to include everyone in those tax brackets who reported earning even $1 of so-called business income, and that income comes from sources way beyond small businesses like consulting, independent contracting, and even the money YouTube partners make from their videos. So, in fact, if you look at the same numbers grouped differently, you'll see that only 2.5% of the more than 36 million taxpayers declaring business income would be affected by these tax increases on the richest two tax brackets, or, as staff editor Derek Thompson of The Atlantic blogged about these numbers last month, quote, "Liberals can say that 2% of small businesses are in the affected brackets, and they're sort of telling the truth. Conservatives can say that 2/3 of people making more than $250,000 in 2009 were small businesses, and they're also sort of telling the truth, but there's a huge difference between small business income and small business owners," unquote. And that's a pretty balanced analysis, but there was none of that balance back on Fox News, where supposedly straight news anchor MacCallum just let Fox News contributor Karl Rove spin away without challenging his one-sided analysis, instead only questioning the political popularity of tax cuts for the rich, as you can see in this clip.
Democrat candidates are saying we ought to continue the top tax brackets because they're hearing from small businesses in their states and districts, you're going to kill the job creators if you raise these taxes.
Yeah, I saw a poll this morning that 1 out of 3 Americans agree with you. 1 out of 3 think they should keep all of the Bush tax cuts, but the other 2 are saying that they should only be for people $250,000 and under. If that poll's right, the White House is politically on the right side of that issue.
No, I appreciate MacCallum actually admitting that only about 1 in 3 Americans want to keep those Bush tax cuts for the rich, because that actually corrects the bogus Fox News poll numbers I debunked last month that said 44% want tax cuts for the rich. But on a real news program, you would also expect the anchor to challenge Karl Rove's exaggerated numbers on the way taxing the rich affects small businesses. But not only did MacCallum fail to challenge Karl Rove's numbers before President Obama's news conference, but immediately after the news conference, another of Fox News' supposedly straight news anchors, Bret Baier, was back with the spin, again exaggerating the effect of taxing the rich on small businesses, as you can see here.
The problem on the argument of the tax cuts and letting the top tier expire, while he says 97% of the families in America are under the $250,000 number, 3% include about 50% of the small business income, according to independent analysis. So you have a lot of folks potentially in that the top tier that he wants to let go.
Of course, again, it's not a lot of folks in the top tier because, again, even though about half of all business income declared comes from those top tax brackets, again, only about 2.5% of the more than 36 million taxpayers declaring business income would be affected by tax increases on the richest two tax brackets. But, again, Fox News failed to provide those full facts, leaving their viewers, I think, without enough information to effectively answer this $700 billion policy question. But I want to know what you think. Did the Fox News coverage of the effects of letting the Bush tax cuts for the rich expire give viewers enough information to make an informed decision on the issue? And beyond the bias question, with the additional information I provided, do you agree with President Obama that the Congress should make tax cuts permanent for 97% of Americans, but also save the $700 billion it would cost to extend the Bush tax cuts for the rich?
YouTube, you decide.